I hope if you're listening to this on Podbean or Apple Podcast or wherever, you can hear the background. Interstate 70 is just over to my right, but the beautiful Rocky Mountains are in the background. As I introduce my next guest, I thought of this quote that Mr. Rogers had said, and someone shared this with me probably 4 or 5 months ago. And he said, if you could only sense how important you are to the lives of those you meet, how important you can be to the people you may never even dream of. There is something of yourself you leave at every meeting with another person. I wrote it on a napkin when they shared that with me. How fitting for today's guest, because he brought up Mr. Rogers. But what I think of is his dad took his life. He didn't have a good relationship with his dad, but he did not want his dad to die. Very powerful story. I'm going to let my next guest tell that, but once again from Mr. Rogers, and if you're listening and not watching, go over to YouTube and look at the beautiful background and think of the things that I get to see because of the tragedy that happened in my life. I would not be here today if the tragedy did not happen in my life. But the triumph that happened in my life is that I opened up my eyes and I looked at the opportunities and I saw the mountains. Mr. Rogers, if you could only sense how important you are to the lives of those you meet, how important you can be to the people you may never even dream of. There is something of yourself you leave at every meeting with another person. This next gentleman I met because of my tragedies. He is part of my triumph. Please help me welcome Cory Greenwood. Cory, thanks for being here, dude.
It's good to be here, man.
You know, we became friends pretty rapidly. We kind of watched each other from a little bit of a distance, right?
Yeah.
For a little while. I don't know why that is, I guess, but...
I don't know. When was the first time we actually did meet? Was that at...
I think we bumped into each other at something, didn't we? A while back, we sort of, I don't know.
I think we just stalked each other.
Yeah, and then officially at lunch, I think, with a mutual friend. Yeah. So is when we did a tour together.
Yeah,
we did a school tour, and that a few months before that is when we officially met.
Yeah.
So
we got to know each other pretty fast on that
we
tour,
didn't we? we got to share a room together a couple nights.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, I think you made fun of me a little bit too.
That's some nights that I'll never forget.
Right. You know what they say about paybacks, right?
Yep.
And I got you on camera on my podcast.
Yep.
Is payback coming today?
We'll see. Hopefully.
Right.
I've been waiting. It's been what, a couple years?
A year. Yeah, a year, a little more. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate what you do. I told you the other day, I appreciate your heart and your mission and things like that. And what came in your life to bring you to that mission is really difficult. And I'm just going to throw it out there. I asked you to be here today because of suicide. Mm-hmm. And recently, there's been some things on my kind of outside peripheral friends that there's been some unfortunate suicides, and it's hard. It hits me deeply because life is so valuable, and I want you to kind of share a little bit about how you got there and why. Actually, let's do this. Tell us what you do.
Okay. So the term, I guess, which I don't like using, it's always awkward when people are like, so what do you do? It's like, what do I say? Because I might think I do something different than what the term is. But,
sure.
I am a speaker just like you. I go mostly into schools and talk to teenagers and kids about how important they are. So I guess I would be a motivational speaker is what they would call it, but I don't like that term for whatever reason. I don't know, it just rubs me wrong. There's nothing wrong. I mean, I have a lot of respected people that grew up watching in that. I just don't see myself as that, but I guess that's the category that we're in.
When someone says, well, hey, what do? You run into somebody or whatever. What do you do? What's the first thing you say?
Well, I usually kind of chuckle because I'm like, I mean, as soon as I say I'm a motivational speaker or whatever, they're all getting, well, motivate me.
Yeah, sure.
Like, come on, like, no, I mean, if you run into a doctor, you wouldn't just randomly be like, okay, here, cut me open and have surgery on me or whatever.
That's a good analogy.
So like, I don't know, I just kind of chuckle, but then I usually say, well, I usually joke about it, well, I guess they would call me a motivational speaker, and then they start asking questions, and then we actually get into the heart of it. You know, it's so much deeper than just motivational speaker, as you know. I mean,
cool. It's easy, right?
Extremely. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing like having thousands of opinions right in front of you and everything being right in front of you, And
it's not like, you've lived in a van or anything, I mean, living maybe is an extreme, but you know what I'm saying, right? It's been some tough times for you.
There was a period of time, I mean, a lot of them were my choice because I knew that this mission that I'm on, I know that this is what I'm supposed to do. Yeah. So for me, it was an easy decision. I mean, could I have not stayed in a van or, slept on some couches for that 90-day period or whatever and just got into something and started paying money for it? Absolutely. But to me, I needed that money to progress in this goal, this dream. So to me, it wasn't hard. To other people, they laugh about it, the whole Matt Foley live in a van down by the river. Yes, for those of you listening, I did stay in a 1987 Chevy G20 van a few nights in a few hotel parking lots. And to me, I think I look back and it was fun. Yeah. I mean, I'm young and yes, I wasn't actually living in it. I had my stuff somewhere safe and I could shower places and that, but I didn't actually have a lease or own a house at that time.
Yeah. I would call you a believer, right? Like you believe in what you do, and so you're going to make sure that you get from point A to point B to C to D.
Without a shadow of a doubt. And sometimes to a fault. Yeah. Sometimes it causes me to, like you said, end up in some places that I might not want to be, but I've embraced it. I mean, I'm not saying that sometimes I'm like, oh, shoot, I probably shouldn't have made that decision, but I've embraced it to be fun. We've known each other for a while now, and you kind of know me, and you've seen some of the crazy things I do, and I've just learned to laugh it off. Like, if this is what I'm doing and this is what I want to do and know I should be doing, like, those things are not a big deal to me.
Yeah. Well, what's cool to me is that, it's you get down into the nuts and bolts of what you do. You do it because you love people, and you like to love on people. And I guess there's some big speakers out there, obviously, and they make millions of dollars and things like that, but that's really very few and far between. And everybody thinks that being a speaker is a glamorous life and all these things, but most of the speakers that I've ever met, they don't make a lot of money, but they're passionate about people, and they take the things in their life and the lessons that they've learned and the tragedies they've gone through or whatever to help other people make better decisions.
Absolutely.
And that's what you're doing, and I love that.
I'm trying, and I hope that the people that I've met, I have been able to leave an impact on them.
Yeah. Positive impact is what I say.
Impact, yeah. Some maybe, just an impact, and some the positive.
Yeah. The goal is positive. And not, absolutely. Hey, Tell us the story of that cold night.
January 5th.
Yeah.
So it was January 5th, 2011, and I had just got off work from the Mayo Clinic. I was working at St. Mary's at the time. I was a cook. So I just got off work, and I like to joke at the assemblies, that I'm kind of addicted to social media, as is most people these days. But so I couldn't wait, as we all do, before I even walked down the long hallway to go punch out, for the night. I pulled my phone out to go on and check my notifications and, see, obviously there was probably 0 there because I'm not a very popular person, but you still got to check. But then I saw I had a voicemail from my dad, and I don't think I can remember ever getting a voicemail from my dad. So I knew something was kind of strange, so I went to it right away and I clicked on it, and basically what the message says, and I still have it to this day. You've heard it. All the students that I get to talk to, they hear it, and it basically just said, Cory, I always did love you. Bye. And at that moment, I knew something wasn't right. I called my sister. Actually, she had called me too, but I listened to the voicemail first, and then after I listened to it, I called my sister back, and she had got the same call with the same kind of message. So we knew, we talked, and she was living in the cities at the time. So I said that I would go to my dad's shop and check on him to just see if he was there, what was going on. So when I got there, there was 2 Mower County Sheriff deputies there, seeing if my dad was there doing a welfare check, because they had gotten a call saying, that something was up, something didn't seem right. And basically throughout the night, I was there with the deputies trying to call my dad. Sorry, the dog's barking in the background.
The guard dog. I know it's distracting.
He's trying to keep the mood light in there, or she is. Sorry about that. But anyways, I was saying
she's protecting us.
She is. Yes, she's our emotional support dog.
Right.
So I was with the officers there, and I sat there trying to call my dad, and it didn't get any answer. And after about an hour, my mom pulled in the driveway too with one of my uncles, and at that point, my mom got out of the car, and I asked her what was going on, and she could barely even talk, and she's told me, that she begged my dad, to not do this, to get help, to, that this wasn't the right way, to deal with things. And at that point, I took my mom's phone from her and called my dad, and he finally did pick up. And he answered, and I asked him, I said, Dad, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And he just flat out said, why do you care? You said yourself, you don't care if we ever have a relationship. You don't care if we ever talked again. And maybe we'll get into some of the backstory too. Just, we didn't have a great relationship, and I said some things out of anger. He said some things out of anger, as people do. So he basically said this, and I proceeded to beg him, and not to do this, and in that, the things I said were out of anger, and he said it's too late, and he hung up the phone. And about 20 minutes later, one of the sheriff deputies had my dad on the phone and was trying to, again, just talk logically to him, which wasn't working. Just, that we can't, we can get you the help. Like, this isn't what you have to do. And while the officer was on the phone, I watched the officer fall to his knees and slam the phone down on his squad car, and he just shook his head, and there was some colorful language, but I cut that out in the school programs for good reason.
Wise.
Yes. But basically what he said, I'm so sorry. I tried everything, but there was a gunshot and the phone went blank.
Yeah.
And from there, it was chaos.
Yeah. You said you didn't have a good relationship with your dad, and that there's going to be people that are listening right now that don't have a good relationship with their dad. But what I want to say right now, before you talk a little bit more about that, is I've asked you those questions and been real specific about it with you personally. Just because you didn't have a good relationship with him, you did not want to see him die.
Absolutely not.
I mean, I want to be really clear on that. I mean, we've
talked about that.
Yeah.
And I do. If anybody has ever heard me speak, we've talked that I hope that message gets through clear.
Yeah.
You know, I'm telling my story, and it is tricky to navigate when you're telling that story like that, because some people might think, well, you know, you didn't have a good relationship with your dad, you know, like, it's not a big deal. But I'm telling my story to help somebody.
Yeah.
You know, the person that might be in my dad's situation, to help them realize, you know, I unpack the pain and the anxiety and the regret and all that in the assembly program. And I hope that they can see that even though my dad, we didn't have a good relationship, that voicemail when he said he loved me, that was the very first time I'd ever heard those 3 words come out of my dad's mouth to me. And, you know, that was the first time and the last time I ever heard him tell me he loved me. But you know as well as I know, those are the 3 words that I wanted to hear my whole life.
Yeah. Even
Even though I had a lot of bitterness and anger and resentment, it was because I craved that. It was because my dad was my hero.
Right.
You know, I wanted nothing more than for him to be there and care about me. And yeah, back to that question, there's nothing that could have happened that would make me think that end result would be okay.
Yeah. What is he, you know, what has he missed? I mean, I know, and we've talked about it, but.
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing is my daughter Macy. She's 8 years old now. She was born 10 days after my dad took his life.
I'm a grandpa.
You are a grandpa.
And I can't even imagine missing out on that.
Yeah. And that to me, that it was a blessing and challenging all at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, Macy probably saved my life in that moment.
Yeah.
It gave me somebody who needed me. I'm not going to say that I was the best dad. I'm not going to say I did everything right. Some of you watching probably know that I wasn't. But it gave me something to focus on. But yeah, I mean, through the years, and it's that conversation will have to come for my daughter. It hasn't came yet. But that's something that's weighs really heavy on me now.
Yeah.
Is you know, how do I explain that to my daughter? And yeah, she would have loved having a relationship with him, and you know, but we can think about the what ifs and all of that, but I really try not to. But they're there. Yeah,
and the what ifs are there just simply in the sense of this is the reality that you live every day. This is the reality that she lives every day, especially when she really understands.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you know, what happened is a tragic thing, but the idea is to help people understand that no matter. I was a bad dad too. I'm a bad dad. I mean, I make all kinds of mistakes and all kinds of. But I've tried to learn from them. I think, and we've had those conversations too, and so have you. But the idea is not that you want, no matter your worst enemy, you don't want them to not exist.
For sure. Yeah.
There's so many good things and positive things.
Yeah.
I went through a lot of things, and what I want to share with you is, you know, I never thought about wanting to end my life, but I was desperate to have the pain end.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that there's such a difference that we need to understand that, yes, we want that pain to end, but we need to understand that the pain doesn't end if you end your life.
Absolutely. It just passes it on to somebody else.
Yeah.
And I understand, though, the gravity of it all for somebody who is in that situation. I can't. I've had thoughts, but I've never been to the point of acting on it. But I can't imagine how deep you have to be to actually be in that position to want to act on it. So,
and it's real.
It is real, and I never take it lightly. That's what I'm trying to say right now, is that we can sit and say until we're blue in the face that there is no reason to do it, but when you feel that way, it's hard.
Yeah.
It that logic isn't there.
Yeah.
And that's why for the past year, my biggest thing right now is, who do you have in your corner?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes you aren't strong enough to let yourself go to the place and say, you know what, it is bad now, but that's not going to solve the problem. So who can you call? Who can you send a text to? Who are you positioning yourself in the good days for when the bad days do come?
Mm-hmm. It's preparation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
As with anything.
Yeah.
I like to use this year. You haven't actually heard me describe it this way, but I describe it as finding your harness on a roller coaster, right? When you're hung upside down on a roller coaster, your butt comes out of the seat, right?
Absolutely.
You fall a little bit.
Yeah.
But that harness catches you before you fall off the ride.
Yeah.
There's going to be days in your life where you are hung upside down and you're falling. You might fall 6, 12, maybe even 24 inches. But if you have a harness, somebody in your life, they'll keep you from falling all the way off.
Yeah.
You'd never get on a roller coaster that went upside down, or any roller coaster, unless you had complete trust that harness was going to catch you.
Mm-hmm.
But we go through life not even thinking about it.
Right.
And that's my number one focus right now, is to get people in the good days and the bad days and the in-between.
So what I hear you say is, really, in those good days, stress the importance of connecting with a positive influence.
For sure.
Yeah. And that positive influence, it's a wide range of people.
For sure. To me, it was a guy named Jake who just essentially fell out of the sky. This crazy turn of events. I met him. He's a great guy, but he's nothing special. He's just a regular dude, and if he listens to this, he'll laugh because he's probably eating Cheetos right now on his couch. But to me, he came into my life at a time that was pivotal, and I actually started to listen to him and started to trust some people, and that changed everything for me.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we think, in terms of deep when it comes to mental health, like, we need therapists and counselors, and they're great. And if you need to see them, see them. But sometimes it is just a friend.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is just a parent or just a friend's parent. We can't overlook the small things.
Absolutely not.
You've been that for me. You've been a sounding board for me when we're outside working and digging holes, and that's important to have. Everything doesn't have to be deep,
right?
And philosophical. That's one thing
So you're saying I'm not deep and philosophical? Goal met.
You know what I'm saying? When we talk about
absolutely.
mental
Making
health
it
and
light
suicide,
again.
and it is a super deep topic, and trust me, you've seen my talk. It's a deep talk.
For sure.
But we don't need to make it weird.
Yeah.
It's life.
Well, you kind of do.
I'm weird, right? Like, I can't help making everything weird. I make drinking a glass of water weird.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? Like,
for sure.
It's life.
Yeah.
We make it weird, people shy away from it.
I think the important thing, too, is to be transparent. I mean, that's the idea behind Triumph Over Tragedies. We're just here to unpack our life. We're here to take our armor off, things like that. Just be really transparent. I think that if in order for when you were at a place, you were ready to be transparent and take your armor off.
Absolutely.
We have to. I think that's so important. We have to do that.
It is, and it's funny because now I'm almost more comfortable taking my armor off in front of hundreds of people
Then one. Sure.
And I think that might be common for some people, but yeah, I just came to a point, and I use this phrase now in my assemblies, is where my whole life I thought that my image was more important than my life. And I came to the point that my life was more important than my image.
Yeah.
And when that switched, that's when I took the armor off. I'm not saying I do that all the time. I'm not saying I don't have guards with, we're human. But there was something absolutely freeing, and something, as you know, when you do share your story, that it allows you to breathe.
Yeah, you need to, as long as you're sharing your story and not telling a story.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, there's storytellers and there's people who tell their story.
Absolutely.
And what I mean by that, so that I'm clear, is that don't go in telling somebody a story and think that, like you say, your image. Just tell them the truth, right? And that's our story. The truth is our story.
Absolutely.
So that's so important.
Yeah. It's all about.
Because I hear a lot of stories.
Oh, for sure.
And it's like
the day and age we live in, and I'm very careful. I try to be very careful about this too, is that, we're encouraging people to share their stories and be vulnerable and all that. But there is a time and place. There is certain people that don't need to know everything.
Correct.
We're not saying, hey, go tell your deepest, darkest secrets on social media, and even if you're not ready for it, because that's not going to be good for your mental health.
Right. Right.
For me, I've got to a point where, like I said, I'm fairly comfortable sharing on social media because I share from a stage. So I have put myself in a position to where my life is in the public. But it doesn't have to be in order for you to use your story to help somebody.
No, absolutely not. It takes definitely, I think, a mental fortitude to be able to do that. Yeah. And not everybody has that. And that's okay. I don't know if I have that. I mean but again, back to the calling, you've been called to do this. This is something that that you're supposed to do, and you're supposed to take these hurts and all the different things that go along with it to help other people. At least that's the goal, as you said.
Yeah. And that was challenging in the beginning. You still want people to think you're a good speaker. I mean, you need to be a good speaker if you want to keep getting invited places. Yeah. So there is that part of it where you do have to be able to tell the story in a way that people can relate, talking, publicly. But in the beginning, it was like, okay, what bits and pieces do I want to share? Now, it's almost like I gotta take some stuff out. Like I want to share too much because I realize I've seen how much a story can help somebody. Even if I'm talking about suicide, I've had people come up and talk to me about drug abuse. Yeah,
I've been in the same place.
Absolutely. We've talked about this before.
Yes.
So now it's almost like I get this rush, and I have to tone it back sometimes. Like, what stories am I going to hear? Like, what types of tragedies or whatever could come about this? And I need to always hone it back in to why I'm there and who I'm there for.
Yeah. That's wise. You have to. I think you can get into a world of trouble if you don't.
Yeah. We've met people
for sure
all over, and it's easy to do.
Yeah.
In every profession, especially ones that are public, it's easy to get the accolades and all that, and I think you should appreciate them, and you should be proud of them. And I'm proud of if somebody, I'm thankful for it. But
you've been trolled much? You talk about, that's good.
I'm not famous enough.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable. It's really uncomfortable. Honestly, I'm trying to decide how, it's like, do you comment on everything, or do you only comment on the positive things, or you know what I mean? Like, I just what's today? 3 days ago, I had to delete something.
Really?
You know, and I don't know if there was necessarily a lot of harm intended, but I just don't. I don't have space for that in my mind, right? Yeah. And so I don't. I just. I don't want my platform being used for other people's negative.
Yeah. It's tough. Thankfully, I haven't had to worry about that a lot because not that many people know who Cory Greenwood is. But it is
not
tough.
Not too many people know who I am either, dude. That's not what I'm saying. But
whatever.
This
dude's a big shot.
You stumble across, But
it's like, you know, you want to create that platform, and you don't want to be like this censored, like whatever. But you have to also protect your community, and it's like, what do you do?
Yeah, it's a balance.
Yeah,
it's tough. And I thought maybe you'd have good advice for me and others.
Nah, but maybe someday I'll have to deal with it.
Yeah, I know that some people have the philosophy is they're not going to do any of it. Right? They're gonna do the post. Yeah. Sometimes they have people that do the post, and you know, I'm actually I have people that have helped me do posting and things because I'm a grandpa, so social media is for you young guys. No, but what I mean is like, do you get to a point where you address the negative because they maybe need the help, or do you just kick it aside and focus on the positive part of the community, or do you not comment at all, reply back at all?
Disable comments.
It's so difficult.
It's hard because, especially in our line of work, because we're trying to help people. Yeah. So it's like deleting somebody's comment or not commenting back can be seen as like, oh, you're a poser or you're fake. Like, this is somebody who actually needs it. And but there is that line. But when you're saying that, I just actually watched the Mr. Rogers, the new movie that was out that Tom Hanks
I sort
did.
of briefly saw your comment. Yeah, talk about that.
It sent me on I watched all the documentaries the past 2 nights. I've just kind of been obsessed. It's just sparked something in me to just investigate Mr. Rogers.
Did you see the one where he was testified in the Senate or something like that?
I saw that.
Yeah, I saw that years ago. I don't remember in detail, but I was very moved by it.
And that would be like an example. Right before Mr. Rogers came out, not to get all deep and philosophical here, but the senators and the people on the committee were basically saying, like, we don't agree with this. This is ridiculous. Yeah. Like, the guy flat out said, hey, I don't want anybody else to read their scripts anymore because I'm bored.
Really?
Okay, so we equate that to like trolls now, right? Yeah. So Mr. Rogers, he came out and he's, I respect that. I can respect why you'd be bored. I have this takes 12 minutes to read, but I'm not going to read it. I'm just going to give you the Cliff Notes. Yeah. And at the end of that 3 minutes, which we've seen, the 3 minutes,
It's been years, so I don't know the exact details, but I remember it was very powerful.
Yes, and the guy and the senator switch just like that. And he's like, I think you just earned the $20 million. Yeah. I think this is great. Yeah. And if he would have came in there like, screw this guy. Right. Like he would have had a bad attitude.
For sure.
So it's like, I think there is that fine line. Some people, it's like, maybe I should take the time and just pour into them. Yeah. But if something crosses a line, you gotta just give it the boot.
Yeah. I think that what I found, and I hope this is going to help somebody, what I found for me personally, if they want to talk to me personally, if they have a problem with me personally, they'll message me.
For sure.
Yeah. Right? Like, I get some of the most powerful messages personally. I got a message from India the other day.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, it just blew my mind, you know? And But that was a private message, a direct message. And because I think they wanted to reach out to me personally.
For sure.
And I think that people that post a comment in a negative way, they don't want to reach you.
For sure.
They don't want to communicate with you.
Yeah.
They want noticed.
Yeah. Yep. And some people just need that. And can we just take a second here? You know, we might have some people on this podcast
for sure
that they get a little carried away in the comments section, right?
Yeah,
we might know some of them. I don't know. I'm not thinking of anybody particular, but you know, if you are that person, take Matt's advice. Like, if you really have something that bothers you, send a message.
Yeah. Direct message, private message, whatever you want to call it.
It's just like if your boss at work wants to correct you, you don't want him to yell at you in front of everybody.
Yeah.
There might actually be something. Like maybe you misspelled a word or whatever. You slipped up and you don't know if that person realizes it. And before it goes out to 25,000 people to laugh at you, you send a quick message. Like, I do that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel bad, but like if I'm on someone's website and I notice like a bunch of words or whatever, I'll send them a quick message like, hey, you know, you're trying to sell yourself. You probably just didn't even notice this.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be rude in that case.
Yeah.
You know, but if I went and like laughed about it, like, look at this guy.
Right.
So if you are that person,
you
know, we've all been there.
Yeah.
We all need attention. If you need a hug, I'll message me and I'll get you Matt's address. And, he's never home, so I don't know if you're ever going to find him. Just go to a random airport, and you're probably better off finding him.
Right.
But if you need a hug, he's great at hugging.
Yeah.
Don't share a hotel room with him because
gunshots, right? Isn't that the joke?
You won't sleep. Let's just put it at that.
Yeah, I do have my weird, quirky habits, don't I? And when you get to be my age and stuff like that, we like to, you know, just have things a certain way.
Yeah. I'll probably
let's
be there
honest,
someday.
you miss it.
I don't at all.
Good.
Just so you guys know, Matt, he sleeps with a noise machine. And some of you probably do too, but I need like silence. And we, for some reason, were paired up. Just random drawing, I'm sure. And, you know, this person who needs to sleep in silence and the person with the noise machine. And yeah, so it was a constant battle. And I tried to be nice, but after 5 hours, I just needed to turn it down, and then Matt wakes up in the middle of the night and turns it back up. It was a battle.
It's part of the fun, right?
It is. It is, though. I mean,
the experience.
It's a memory.
Yeah, for sure.
It really wasn't that bad.
Yeah, no.
Like, it's funny we joke about it, and that's one thing that I want to get across to people too, is I joke around, I mess around with people, but it doesn't mean I don't care about that person.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Yeah, absolutely.
And I actually had somebody at an assembly when I told that story of you. They like, trolled me. They did, or whatever you would say. You know, when you talk about bullying, but here you are talking about this guy and his noise machine, like like getting offended for you. And I think sometimes we gotta kind of back sensitive. Off a little bit.
Yeah,
you know,
I think
I care about you, and that's why we can joke about it.
Exactly.
If you were some random guy and I was just ripping on you,
right?
But
right.
So there is a line that I think we've crossed nowadays,
for sure,
and we need to back off a little bit because otherwise we're just going to be robots.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can't have connection without tension.
That's a great way to put it.
Cannot.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's good. And it's totally in fun.
Oh,
and, you know, I don't have the joking mind that you do on ripping on somebody, but no, I'm kidding.
Well, I mean, you know, you just do it in different ways. And it's funny, we were talking about Mr. Rogers, and, you know, I think you're a lot like him.
Wow.
You think, I mean,
is it how I
like
dress?
That. Not, yes. You don't have the cardigan on today, but, you know, not the deep philosophical stuff, but you're a thinker.
Yeah.
And sometimes it drives me nuts.
Yeah.
Because I'm fast.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I go off the cuff and, like, it sometimes gets me in trouble, but you're a thinker. You think before you talk, and sometimes it's like, just, where are you going here? Like, you know?
Yeah.
But he was a lot like that. And in that post you saw, I talked about how he was what people needed instead of what he thought people wanted.
Right, absolutely. And I would totally say I'm like that.
Yeah.
I'll give you exactly what I think you need rather than what you want. Yeah.
And sometimes that needs to happen.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to sugar it with a little bit of want in there. But.
Yeah. And absolutely, I'm an extremely deep thinker. I mean, I'll process through something for an awfully long time and then execute. But once I execute, I don't stop.
Yeah.
Because I've thought big picture, right, from A to Z, and then now once we go, we're going.
Absolutely.
You just witnessed that.
Yes.
I mean, when you pulled in the driveway. I mean, you were here at A. And now we're
here
getting
at minus
right.
We were in the numbers still.
Yeah,
reach the alphabet.
exactly. And so you see, and just that's my A to Z type deal, right? The way I think, it's like once we start, it's done.
Yeah.
So
and
absolutely,
I'm not.
Yeah,
and that's okay.
Absolutely,
and
sure.
For people out there, especially young people, is we get confused about that.
Yeah.
When I started to be a speaker, there's people that I tried to be. It's okay to learn from people and say, well, that really worked. And, maybe I could work it into mine.
How can I use my personality?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we try and fake it, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you might need a little push.
Yeah.
Hey,
I do.
I know you want to think about it, but we need to know by tomorrow.
Right.
And sometimes I need to be like, hey, maybe let's just draw it out a little bit more.
Yeah.
And it frustrates me in the moment. You might get frustrated in the moment, but it's what we need.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally agree. Oh, that's good. So it's worth a watch, huh?
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's not what I expected. I guess I didn't really know what to expect, so I can't really say it wasn't what I expected. But it was good. Tom Hanks did a good job.
He's a good actor.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
It was... In the beginning, it was a little bit tough to get into the difference between Tom Hanks and Mr. Rogers if you actually watched it.
Yeah.
It was just because he is so quirky. And it's hard to do some of these quirks, and that's actually why he didn't want to do it in the beginning, because he knew it would be tough.
Right.
Because everybody knew Mr. Rogers' quirks.
Yeah.
But then they do a good job of sucking you into it, and then you almost forget that it's Tom Hanks now. Now you are on the journey.
Yeah.
So it was pretty good.
Cool.
Yeah.
As you well know, I collect movies and things. So is it worth the collection, or go to it in the theater? I
wouldn't say it's a buyable one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good. But it's seen it once.
You're good to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I think really what they wanted to do was make people think. It wasn't supposed to be, in my opinion, like a movie where it's Thanksgiving and every Thanksgiving we're going to sit down and watch A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. It was supposed to be like, we're going to put this out there and just give people something to chew on.
Do you think, with that said, do you think that they did this with so society today is so sucked into what they are, right? And we don't need to exactly go into detail, but the likes on Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and all these things. I heard Instagram's getting rid of those too, by the way.
They did. I heard
They're
it.
Totally
I heard
gone.
it went away, but I can still see them.
Okay.
So I don't know if I'm in some vortex, and
maybe you haven't updated it. I don't know.
People are walking through life they're like, oh, I don't know how many likes, and I'm like, well, you got 13.
Right.
But
I think that's a good thing, though. Is what I mean. Is we as and we've talked about the podcast thing, and you quite frankly were really confused. Why are you going to do this, and why are you taking time off of speaking and all these things, and I don't mean that in a negative way.
I get what you're saying.
I don't, but I think for me, it's like this is content for people to take in, right? And I'm not getting paid to sit down. You're not getting paid to sit down.
Not?
No.
What?
You didn't get the message?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, my people get back with your people.
Yeah. We'll figure this out. One way or another.
Right.
I'm taking a pop.
Perfect. I don't have strawberry. I'm out. You're the only one that was here this summer that drank it. Like,
so
and
good.
so I know.
I'd
I agree.
sneak in when you were gone. I knew the code.
Perfect.
Like, I got to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, it was really
I might
for
as well
the
grab a strawberry quick.
Dude, I love it. I love it. But the content, you know, the idea for me is put it out there, and certainly there's things that you have to make a living, you have to make ends meet, but there are other things that you have to just put it out there for people to absorb, and not need affirmation. We need affirmation at a certain level in life and things like that, but I think that so much of the social media and the way society has been driven for so many years, that's the only way to do it and get it. So do you think that this is a way, in a sense, is there motivation behind this as essentially a reboot of really how good this was, right? And how important it is to not need those things.
I think it was a combination of both.
Sure.
Obviously, if you have Tom Hanks in a movie, you're going to pay him.
Yes.
You know, you're not... you would think a movie like this would have all no-name actors.
That's a good point. I didn't think of it like that.
Because it's PBS and it's that.
Sure.
And really, Mr. Rogers wanted, even as they started making more money with, you know, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, he wanted to keep it that way. And in his other documentaries, he talked about the value of simple and deep. So he kept it that way. He wanted it to be simple but deep. Yeah. So I think they wanted to respect it, because I was just reading, don't quote me on this, you know, don't fact check Politico me, but, you know, I was reading that it took some convincing from his wife for them to let him do it.
Is that right?
Yeah. So I think she really wanted to make sure that it was that.
Yeah.
So they had to merge the two. Yes, they want to make money, and I think I read that in the first 3 days they're at like 14 million, which compared to Frozen 2's 580 worldwide, it's not there. Yeah. But they are making money, and they needed to, because they needed to convince the people to let them to do it. It's like a 13-year long process, really? I think. Something like that. Yeah, I just read it quick last night.
Fact check him on it.
I was reading it quick last night. They probably came up with it like last month or something. Yeah. But yeah, so I think it's both. But I think
it was 13 minutes, not 13 years.
They're like, oh, maybe we should do this. But I think it is both, because it does have that feel to it. Like, you know, this is...
like it's a Hollywood production.
It is.
Right. It has that feel to it.
No. It has the opposite.
Okay.
It's got, like, you know it is, and it's done really well, because it's not choppy.
Yeah.
In that part of it, you know it's Hollywood. You know, you've seen some of those where they're good movies, but, like, you can... you know?
Yeah.
They had all the high-quality stuff, but they almost purposefully made some things not as high production. Like, they still use it switched between, like, the cartoon, just like in actual Mr. Rogers. So you would see, like, back into the old cartoon of his thing. And so, like, in that sense, they didn't try and beef it up. And just like everything else in today's age, they left it
it's that authentic.
Jane, you know, as it was. And I'm sure the story they tweaked a little bit to make it, you know, a little more dramatic or a little, right? But it seemed, you know, I didn't grow up with Mr. Rogers, you know, he wasn't my actual neighbor or anything, so I don't know this story in real life, but it seems like
I'll have to watch it.
Go watch it. It's good for you.
Yeah.
One thing he did though in the movie that's super cool, and we've kind of been talking about this, is his goal was to get people to slow down. Like, if you watched his show, his pace and that, some of it was probably because he's just quirky and a little weird. Yeah. But he was very methodical at slowing time down. Yeah. Because that's even back then, you know, it started in, I think, 68, he could see how things were starting to speed up. And he had this, like, crazy, almost, like, forethought, knowing how important it would be in today's age. You know, he just slowed it down, and it probably drove a lot of people crazy.
Yeah.
We could make so much more money if we just went with the pace of things.
Right.
And he was like, no, that's not the point of it.
Yeah.
So that's when I made that post about being what people needed. Is he forced people to slow down. And I think that's so important. We're talking mental health. We're talking suicide, right?
Yeah.
We got to slow it down sometimes. Right. Sometimes we just need to say, well, hold on a second.
Yep.
Maybe what he or she said, or maybe what he or she did, or maybe whatever happened, or maybe whatever thoughts that are happening. Like, if I could just slow it down just even a little bit, would I be able to see a way out?
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. But the thing that people want to get is what's a faster solution.
Yeah.
What's a quicker way out? But I don't think that's necessarily helpful. I mean, it is, but it's not. It doesn't need to be faster. It doesn't need to be quicker.
Right.
It needs to be more thoughtful.
Right. Thoughtful. That's good, because there's not a lot of thought in even frankly in text and stuff. There's not a lot of thought in it. There's not a lot of thought behind social media, obviously, in most cases, and that's where a lot of bullying comes in and some of that kind of thing. But I think when you receive something, you know, I've talked to people that they're like, well, one, let me say, I hate the posts that say that make you ask questions. They want you to ask questions, right? I
always do those. I love those.
But what I mean is like the negative thing, right?
Oh, okay.
I don't mean like you know, what's your favorite Christmas?
Yeah, trying to get engagement. You're talking like
I'm talking like
can't believe she did that.
I did this for 20 years and you know now I'm on to my next thing or I can't believe that just happened and you know well what happened or you know and really I think that and I'm gonna probably make a lot of people angry on this, but I prayers needed. You know, I get that, but and I get, you know, I believe in God the Father, Jesus the Son, and the Holy Spirit, that Apostles' Creed thing in the Bible, but we also need to know what to pray for.
Absolutely.
And that's also biblical.
I think it comes back to what we talked about earlier.
Yeah,
there's a
so
time
help
and
me
a place.
understand it.
There's a time and a place. Right? If you really do need prayers, yes. Like, get your prayer warriors.
Yeah.
Like, they're, you know, if you're a believer, if you read the Bible, there's scripture in there that says, you know, where two or more, you know, where you get a group of believers. But God is also a God of order.
Yeah, right.
You know,
right.
Jesus didn't just go out spouting things off.
Correct.
So, yes, if you do need some attention, right, that's all they're craving, right?
Yeah.
In that moment when they're like, I can't believe this happened, it's just they need something now, okay? And it comes back to, who do you have that you can pick up the phone with? Right?
Exactly.
Because that's what you need.
You need the personal connection.
Yes.
You don't
that
need
comment or whatever. It might feel good for a second. It really is just like bullying.
Yes, it is.
It feels good for a second for people to think you're tough.
I've been a bully.
Yeah, so have I.
And I've been bullied.
And I don't lie to
and
people.
So that's I get
it. Feels good in that moment. You know, like, But then as time goes on, you realize that it's not true.
Right.
And it's the same with the social media. Like, I don't necessarily bash those people because they are looking for something.
Right. I'm not,
you know, and that's what we're trying. You know, that's.
I'm just trying to. It drives me crazy because I don't understand it.
Yeah, and that's what I guess I'm starting to learn more. You know, as I get older and wiser. You know, is just
well, you get older. Anyway.
Is the idea behind it?
Yeah.
Everybody just wants to be heard. I heard somebody say, I don't know if it was John Maxwell or somebody, but everybody is dying to be heard.
I agree with that 100%, but how can you be heard? That's my point. How can you be heard if you're not saying anything?
True.
You can't be heard. And
Yes.
what even the next step is you go and you read through those comments, and they're not answering the questions.
Absolutely.
What's wrong? What's
Yeah.
wrong? What
Yeah.
happened?
Yep.
What happened? And the question is never answered. Well, I think that is in itself a form of bullying. You're bullying me for trying to. I'm being facetious,
Yeah.
but
No, I get what you're saying.
But what I mean is I think that's a form of attention that's a very negative attention,
Yes.
and what that does is it causes a vacuum.
Absolutely.
Right, and because it's the old adage, cry wolf.
Yeah. And I've been there. I'm just thinking as you're saying that, I look back on some of my posts from when I was like in high school and just graduated, and I did that all the time.
Sure.
I was bored or needed in that moment just something, and I wasn't somebody to talk about my problems, but to have somebody even just ask, even though I ain't gonna tell them, was like enough. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't, in my mind it was enough,
Right,
but it really wasn't filling me up.
Exactly, and that's exactly what I'm saying. There's no personal connection there, and personal connection is the only thing that can fill you.
And it goes back to, who do you have?
Yeah.
Even in those moments. And he says it doesn't have to be deep. It doesn't have to be if you're on the verge, literally have the rope hanging from your rafters and are ready to jump off the chair and end your life.
Yeah.
Like, it can be as simple as you missed the game-winning shot in a basketball game.
Right.
Or you thought you studied really hard for this test and you didn't get the result you wanted. Or you thought you were going to get the promotion at your job and somebody else came in and took it. Simple things that have a big impact on our everyday life, right? Mm-hmm. Who do you have in those moments?
Right.
Right? We have counselors, we have psychiatrists, and all these like critical care, emergency room type stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But what do we have for the everyday things? Because those are what add up.
Exactly.
Those are what add up. You miss that shot, and then you don't deal with it. You think you're a failure. So then you stop trying as hard in practice, and then the coach is on you.
Yeah.
Now you don't like the coach. Now your parents are mad at the coach because you're not playing as much, right? And it just goes down a rabbit trail. Whereas if you would have just had a proper way of releasing in that moment, I'm not saying everything's going to be perfect. That's not what life's about.
Right.
But you probably would have been able to boil it down to, hey, get it next time, right? But so many times we drag it out because we don't want to talk about it. We want attention, but we don't actually want to dig in and deal with it.
Right.
Because some of it might be our fault, right?
I've
been there. You've been there.
Yeah, I'm there way too often.
I laugh about that in my assemblies, when mom or dad or boss says something that is true, but you can't let them know that they're right.
Right.
And so it's like that image over life thing.
Yeah.
You have to let your image is too important in that moment. And I still struggle with this. I mean, for certain people, right? You want to act like you have it under control.
Yeah. Yeah. I think when you do what we do, especially, there's an expectation that you do have it like under control and you have it figured out and all those things. But I guess really in reality, I think that what you have to come down to is understanding, here's what I do have figured out. I have some strengths, but I also have some things that I'm not going to work on because I've tried that already.
Yeah, for sure.
But what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, this is a bad place for me.
Yep.
So I need somebody to take that place,
absolutely.
right? Yeah. I need somebody to step in, and I just can't do that.
Yeah. And that's responsibility.
Yes.
That's being responsible. A lot of times we get confused thinking, if I do ask for help, people are going to think I'm not owning my decisions and my choices and that. Well, no. Being like the ultimate in taking responsibility for your life is exactly that. Understanding like, hey, maybe I'm not so good at this, so I have to be able to admit that and surround myself with people who can either help me, hold me accountable in it, or do it for me if you're in a business or something like that.
Right.
And that's so important for kids.
Yeah.
Like that's something that's so backwards in their life right now that I see.
Yeah.
Did
I tell you what my new assembly I'm working on for
I don't think
next
so,
year?
no.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about it off the air. It's a couple of things you just mentioned, but
you better bring him into your school if you work at one.
Yeah.
Bring Matt in. Right.
Bring Cory in. I'm better. I mean, he's better than.
Oh no, it's.
Well, dude, let's wrap up. But here's how I want it to happen. I want you to kind of monologue the end here, and just pour it out and tell people how important they are.
All right.
You know how important people are to me.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it gets me into trouble, right? Because I just pour into people and maybe not myself and some people close to me. But I want you to really help people understand, despite the negative influence your dad had in your life, that you did not want that to happen.
Okay. All right, I'll just take the next 45 minutes.
Yeah, okay. At least.
All right. I mean, first off, number one is whoever you are, wherever you are, whether you're 90 years old listening to this podcast. I know you're older, Matt, so you probably have a few
Thanks for noticing.
Older people listening, and that's great. So whether you're 90 years old or literally 9 as a kid, you are important. There's people in your life that are watching you. That's something that I am learning as I am doing this, going on this journey. People are starting to come out of the woodwork and say, I've been watching you and you've inspired me. You've had that happen too. And it's like, well, where were you 5 years ago when I was living in a van? You know? You kind of have those thoughts. It's just funny, but when you're in those moments, I bring that back to when you're in your moments, people are watching you. People do need you, whether it's your little brother or sister or your husband or your wife or a coworker. People are watching you go through life, even as adults. Everywhere you go, you're going to have stuff happen. I'm not a big fan of anti-bullying. I'm a fan of getting people to love each other. I'm not anti anything. I'm pro things, right? Mm-hmm. Because we can't run from things.
Correct.
We can't run. We can, but it'll never stop. Once you run from one thing, you have to keep running. And so that's what I would encourage you, wherever you are, no matter who you are, how old you are, what your name is, how much money you have, whether you're addicted to drugs right now, whether you're in a prison right now, you have value. My shirt that I'm wearing right now, it says your story matters. And I mean that. It's cliche, it's quirky, but I truly mean that. Your story matters. My story matters. Matt's story matters to somebody, right?
Absolutely.
The world might, as a whole, might not all accept it, but to somebody, it matters. And to somebody, just like this podcast is about, triumph over tragedy, your story is the step to their triumph. Mm-hmm. But if you don't share it, they'll never know.
Yeah.
Just like you said, people expect us to be perfect as speakers. But if I just went on a stage and talked about how perfect I was, people would just say, I wish I was perfect like him. But if I go on there and say, hey, you know, I do make some mistakes. Yesterday I made a mistake. Today I made a mistake. Then they can say, okay, he made it. I can too. Mm-hmm. And if I could leave you with anything is, me and my dad didn't have a good relationship. You know, I grew up with a lot of resentment. I grew up with a lot of pain, a lot of insecurity. Didn't feel like I was good enough. You know, my dad wasn't abusive. He provided for us financially very, very well. I mean, we never went without. We never struggled for anything in that. And as I've gotten older, I realized that that's what my dad equated being a good dad was.
Mm-hmm.
So in his mind, it's not making excuses for him, but in his mind, he was frustrated that I didn't appreciate that. And I was frustrated that he wasn't meeting my emotional needs. Would a conversation solved everything? No. But could it have helped? Yeah. So in those moments that you think you know everything, ask a question. Like we said earlier, be willing and be okay with tension. Whatever your politics are, whatever your religion is, be okay with tension. Whatever your skin color is, ask a question if you're wondering something instead of being awkward, because you never know what could come of it. And I've come to a point where I have forgiven my dad. I could never stand on the stage and help people if I didn't come to that point.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. Doesn't mean I don't have days that I wish it was different. But I forgive my dad, and I love my dad. And if you are in my position, I encourage you to find a way to get to that point, because it'll change everything. And if you're in my dad's position and you're thinking that that's the answer, I beg you to just slow down for a minute. Find somebody. Think about what could be past this moment. Because I don't want to go to your funeral. I've had to do that. Even to this day, I've had to go to a school. The kids who've made that decision. I don't want to do that. And I know you really don't want to do it either. There's people that care about you. No matter who you are. No matter how old you are. Your story matters.
Thanks, Cory. Yeah. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here, man.